Hello everyone, this here is Tracilyn. How you doing? Tracilyn Michael. I'm also known as VCat, and today I'm going to make a short video here in my recording studio. I am getting ready to record my third studio album, Ragtop Cadillac. At least I think that's what it's going to be called. I wanted to make a quick video to give you a little bit of insight about things that I have gone through in the music industry and in life in general, and have come to a reality of acknowledging that in this country, United States of America, there is something that seriously needs done. It's called, here, let me see if I can find one. Okay, I'm back. Americans need to start reading more of the Bible. Did you ever hear that as you go through life? Have you ever considered reading the good book? It's a lot of words. You know, since I was just a little toddler, living in Jonestown, Pennsylvania, I remember in reflecting back where I thought I heard a voice in my head, the thoughts, asking me to read a Bible that my grandmother, Gladys Dobb, had given me. Right around that time. That was right around the time that I was reaching for an acoustic guitar. And by the way, a lot of people in mainstream music industry will do everything they can to try to get you to stop playing acoustic guitar and do things like computer music. If that's your heart and that's what you want to do, then bless you. I don't want to get too much into the details of it because it's pretty much argumentative and it's my perspective. But in my personal life journey, I have realized that when we get into the organic and natural flow of instruments, life, it's much more in tune, and that overwhelms the thought process. There's a couple subjects I wanted to touch base on. As many of you know that have watched my videos on my video blog channel, I discussed about how I started to read the Bible in the early 2000s, and I continued to study within it. I read it several times, studied psychology, the power of the mind, positive thinking. I also am a victim to falling into agreement with televangelists on television, people who speak thinking that they know the answers, and I have learned through a lot of difficult times, they preach death. I have learned when I finally got my foot into this apartment that when my brain started to thaw out a little bit, that a majority of what I was falling into agreement was leading me to the streets of death. Okay? No more. I want to caution you, whether it's me, whether it's people like Joyce Myers, Joel Osteen, other people on television, Howard Stern, no matter who you're listening to on the radio, be careful that you do not fall in agreement thinking that the words that are coming out of their mouth are beneficial for your life. More so or not, whether they're doing it awareingly or not, I have learned that Satanists have technology and they literally can tamper via satellite with people's thoughts process and forming them an artificial intelligence. When you start talking, they can start stimulating the mind with some kind of electrical current, if you will. And when they do that, they can actually confuse your thought process when you're speaking, and then you start coming out and you're speaking other things. In some cases, this would kind of be an imitation of what is considered to be the Holy Spirit. When you read the Bible, you will find out that God states within there in the Holy Bible not to be concerned so much about what to say when we arrive at a certain destination, okay? Because the Holy Spirit will speak on your behalf. I have learned of the very difficult and trial way. Not only does Jesus Christ, the ultimate love and perfection of life, speak through us or connect with us, but the truth of the matter is, so can Satanists with technology. A lot of what the problem is going on in America when it comes to homelessness, when it comes to hunger, when it comes to cities falling on their face, is simply because we are electronically harassed. If you are dealing with a high volume of major depression, if you are dealing with a serious personality disorder, does your child have ADD, okay? The lack of ability to hold still? Do you go to school, or does your children go to school and you have a hard time when you read something comprehending what it says? Do you have a hard time focusing? Well, there you go. Most likely, I would be willing to bank on it that you are being electronically harassed, because I wouldn't blame it on the government per se. I would say that it's a group of Satanists that are very distant from Satan, meaning through a series of demonic forces, if you will, as discussed in the Bible, making their way into the human race, where they obviously seek out to destroy all human life, all life. I have learned through a lot of studies that, especially when you get involved with mainstream music, entertainment, that would be radio, television, movies from Hollywood, Disney, Warner Brothers, etc., etc. I could go on and on and on. BMI, ASCAP. You will find out that in every case scenario, when you just turn on one television show, you could sit down with a pen and paper and literally write out a large list of everything that you, be truthful, acknowledge as being inappropriate behavior. And what I mean by that is, know that we live in the laws of the land of America. And much like our old Bugs Bunny cartoons, if we went around and just smacked people over the head and thought it was funny, we'd be arrested, okay? If you don't believe me, I don't want you to, but walk up to anybody and do that. Walk up to an officer, walk up to your mayor, walk up to the President of the United States, and I guarantee you, you're gonna be arrested for doing that. In my opinion, very strongly, whatever we watch and listen to on television and radio should be in alignment with the laws of the land. They should show us appropriate mannerism on how we should live. When you got people in Hollywood blowing up buildings, taking machine guns and blowing each other's up, people up, okay, what is that instilling into everybody's mind psychologically, okay? Do you understand that we are not just here on what they call a spiritual? I think it's more of a mental. It's psychological. And what we feed off of, our brain is like Pac-Man, it starts to get into the wheel of meditation. I have learned in 2012, actually prior to that, but it started to make sense with the satanic occurrence that happened to me when I was living on the road as an escort in New Jersey. I have tied it all together, and I realized that there's been people watching me ever since I was a child. Most likely, there is a chip somewhere back here in my head. I don't know if you can see it. Let me see if you can. Right here. Can you see that? Let me go put it on the light. I've been wanting to have a doctor look at this again. I think I'm going to go in a week or two. Okay, I can't really see. But under here, okay, right where my finger is. When I lived on Lafayette Street, it was probably like 1980. I had gone to the Good Samaritan Hospital because I think I had problems with kidney stones or something. As a little kid, I know it stung really bad when I urinated, so I had to go into the hospital. Right around that time, prior or right after, I showed that to my mother. And the thing is she told me it was nothing to worry about. I've had that exact same size ever since then. It never got bigger. It never got less. It never went away. When I was living on the road as an escort and I checked myself in to the Good Samaritan Hospital, long story short, I share about how I freaked out because I was all stressed out of things that were going on in my life, and they had put me to sleep with Haldol to calm me down. It knocked me out. I went to sleep. When I woke up, I had a sensation that a chip was most likely put in me. Okay, and I told my sister this. What I'm convinced, by looking back on my life story, that most likely a chip, which might be there on my back of my head, was placed into my body approximately October 19th, 1972 when I was born. Okay, I don't know if I'm the only person. I don't know if, if there's other means or not in ways that I've learned, but I have most certainly been being stalked, and I could look back on my whole entire life, and I already shared my whole life story about things that occurred. As I was making my way through life, I was always inspired to do music, period. Whether it's within the community, whether it's in a group of friends. For over 7.5 years, I was a solo acoustic entertainer all over central Pennsylvania and Maryland too, and I played some other states. I dabbled and I wanted to travel. During that time, I used to hand out CDs, okay, to publishers, people that I knew had more access to like record companies and stuff like that. If I thought, I gave this to my promotional CD to all kinds of people. Let me see if I have it here. Okay, so this is great. So here it is. That is my promotional CD, and you might be one of them that have one of many. You see down here? See that number? That's 1,000. Whoops. And 1. That signifies and marks how many live performances I did. That's why I have this CD. I did over 1,000 shows before I stopped doing it. I realized that after 1,000 shows, if I'm not going to get out of it what it is that I desired, which was to go on tour, continue writing my songs, recording, obviously publishing deals, etc., it was time for me to refrain from that. I had a really hard time letting go because I was extremely successful for what I did. Okay, very, very successful as a solo acoustic entertainer. And what this is this was a studio project, okay, with like 3 songs on, just you and me, which is what I'm working on in the studio right now. Hugs and Kisses, I recently did a new version of that. And Only Spoken Words is one that I was most certainly known for as a songwriter. I offered permission for use for a place that was in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, for mothers and their children that are homeless. That's what the song was about, was to let my mother know how much I love her. Okay? We had quite the life growing up, and I wanted to share with her how much she meant to me. So I wrote a song one day, and eventually we got it recorded. The photograph was actually, taken in Jonestown, Pennsylvania, right by the Swati. If you're leaving town and taking the back way past the post office, would be on the right. On the left-hand side, just before you get to the Swati, there's a hill. That hill where I'm standing, that's it. And behind me, if I'm not mistaken, that's the Jonestown Elementary School playground. And the playground that's by the Jonestown Elementary School. Anyway, that's the hill that I used to go toboggan on. I'd go sledding as a little kid with my family. There it is. There's going to be a few subject matters that we're going to talk about, and that is, over the course of time, I met a lot of people in the music industry. I also met a lot of lawyers. I talked to a lot of lawyers all over the United States and abroad. Some of you may know and recognize. That's my logo. My brother took the photograph of the promotional CD, okay, and then my brother also designed what you see here, the shadow me over a star. Okay? My brother played a big role in words of encouragement to get me started in my endeavors, and he started to help me out tremendously. Obviously, over a season of time, I continued to keep going, and many of you who would come across this from Pennsylvania, etc., or with the CDs, would know me as Todd Michael. Todd Michael is the name my mother had given to me. My last name used to be Arndt, and I had reasons why I got rid of Arndt, and then I legally went to Todd Michael, and then I realized my personal identity after reading the Bible, God gave me a new name. It was a name of great importance to me. Unfortunately, the two girls that I named myself after, Tracy and Lynn, are no longer in my life. I tried reaching out to them. They do not talk to me. I think that's a shame. All right, I'm a really nice person, and I'm realizing more so or not, our thoughts are being tampered with, and Satanists work double time to try to keep people arguing and fighting over petty little stuff. What I wanted to get at is in 2012, after years of going through a lot, trying to figure out how I'm going to get my needs met. You see, I went to LCB's Lancaster County Bible Church in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, for a lot of years. I mentioned about all the studies I did personally. The thing is, when it came down to it, okay, I got into my personal identity, but I had no means of support. Psychologically, I was considered to be confused and lost. I didn't know where to turn for assistance. I ended up becoming an escort, and that's when it most certainly became very clear to me, even with the first person that I was with, first client, that I was being watched. So that's why I go back with this chip most likely was put into me at birth. My question is, if you do, feel in the back of your head, do you have any kind of signs of moles or bumps, like little cysts or anything like that on the back of your head? The reason that I mention this is because they constantly put about, having a chip like in the forehead or like on the wrist. You see my bump there, a little cyst on a wrist. And the truth of the matter is, I have seen the lights swoop down, they're white, and I'm convinced that they latch on to the back of the brain with the laser, and through that they can literally see through the eyes. So they know they know any information that you write down, or like your PIN numbers and your credit cards when you're speaking and talking to other people, meaning they can use your senses somehow with this technology. They can hear, I don't know if they can smell, but they most certainly, I'm convinced, can see the eyes, through the eyes. Okay, with that being said, understand that for years of my musical endeavors, I wanted to get my life in a manner that I worked a portion of life and the rest of it was mine to do whatever I want. I don't feel the government, I don't feel that other people in general, I don't feel that anybody else should have say in what I do with my free time. We're here to live life. We're here to live life. We're not here to work 24 hours, 7 days a week. Something happened in this country to where all of a sudden these corporations start taking over, and now we gotta work from the time we wake up until we go to bed, and we're in debt, and we can't afford to eat or take very good care of ourselves. We have hardly any time whatsoever to be with our family. My question is, why is this so consistently true in America? I'll tell you why. In my opinion, because not enough people are reading the Bible and getting it right about the great importance of life. And that means what it means to you, not what it means to the general masses, not what it means to the government, no matter, it's what it means to you and what it says here in the Holy Bible. I have learned that when you have the Bible, okay, and the stuff starts to fall in alignment when you get away from listening to other people's perspective of the Bible, you will start to realize that no leader comes in between you and God, because God's already in your brain, okay? But we're not taught that. If you listen to these televangelists or these pastors, they speak like God's way out there somewhere. They don't even mention that God is every word you ever heard your whole life, and that's why, guess what? That's why they want to keep God out of school. You can't keep God out of school. That is artificial beliefs, okay? God is every word that you hear, not just in the Bible. It's every single word all over the place, okay? With that being said, that's corrupted to take children from their parents and force them to go to school. They have to go to school or there's going to be penalties. if they don't go to school. However, let's keep God out of school, all right? That is right in front of everybody who just heard that, okay? You believe what you're taught. And when you're yanked out of your parents' house and you go to school, I'm here to tell you, in my opinion, a majority of it, not all of it, a majority of it is a waste of our time, waste of our life. Most of the things that we have to learn, number one, we want to get it right with God, right? We really do, because we want to find out who we truly are in the name of Jesus. Meaning when we're kind and we're loving and we're caring, we're forgiving. That's things that are called, all the things that are perceived as nice and loving and caring, that's the fruits of Jesus. Meaning that's how Jesus is. Jesus is kind, and therefore I should be kind. Meaning Jesus is a role model for us. Okay? Not the people on television, not the people on our radio, not the people in political fields, okay? Jesus Christ is the example for us, the perfect example. Now, we're human and we're not going to be perfect, but we're made right in Christ, meaning the more that we come to be nice like Christ, loving like Christ, and it varies for all of us, right? The truth of the matter is that's when the true us will start to come, shine through. We have been dictated from a body part that that's our identity, and that's the way we should live life. I'm here to tell you that that is false information. It's all about personal identity. And we never know what words are inside your brain at this time because you're constantly being bombarded when you're watching TV, you're listening to the radio, you're talking to other people, you're going about daily life, you're on the wheel of meditation in your mind. Can I tell you that I'm convinced that God, the ultimate creator, created us specifically as it is written in the Bible because God was alone and God wanted to have a relationship. So that's why God created humans. And God didn't want the human to be alone, meaning just words inside the person's brain. That's why Eve was created, so that they could be together. It brought God joy to see people together in relationships. Unfortunately, Satanist also exist, and therefore the trial and error of going more in a loving manner versus lack of love is continuously like a tug of rope pull. Okay, I have learned very challenging that people have technology. If you look online, you will find out that they have like the voice of God kind of equipment, okay? If you ever saw a CB radio and how it works on the radio when somebody talks, you gotta have an antenna hooked up, okay? It's catching radio frequencies, if you will, that are being transmitted. Understand that I'm convinced that this same thing can happen to our heads, okay? In other words, there's words all over the place, bombarding us, going past us. I mean, think about how many songs and all this. How does it get from one point to another point? So there's a lot of words that are in travel all over the place, all over the planet and beyond. Okay, with that being said, when are they visual? Okay, when are they audible? When can you actually touch a word? Okay, with our senses. With that being said, I'm convinced that life isn't necessarily exactly what we've been taught at all. I think a lot of the truth, in my perspective, has been kept way far away from us. Okay? As we get closer to the true us that we are, we will acknowledge that we are being monitored very closely. And I'm convinced that that's the reason why we have been given a social security number. Okay? That number identifies an individual, okay, in a computer system. And with that being said, don't be surprised if that social security number, along with other numbers or what have you, is not actually to a chip that they instill inside your children. In my opinion, whenever your child goes into a hospital or any doctor, don't you dare leave that kid alone. If you can monitor and be with that kid, be with that kid. Don't trust another person, another human being with your child, okay? Because what ends up happening is stories like I've been sharing with you, being stalked, being harassed, being monitored. And don't be so surprised if our bodies can't be like computeroids and hijacked in order for them to fulfill their desires or their purposes. Now, is this done through demons? Is this done through other forces that are unknown? Or is it done by electronic harassment? Okay, you hear stories, and we've seen movies where a person supposedly, in the movie was homeless, and they were hearing voices in their head continuously. Okay, that's something I saw when I was in a mental hospital, behavior unit, for people that were, that needed mental attention, healthcare. And let me tell you something, it was a great movie, The Celloist, I think it was. But and it made me stop to think a little bit. And then I heard other stories about other songwriters, other artists, etc., etc. You always see, if you pay attention, a lot of people in the music industry, entertainment industry, it looks like there's something going on that they're affected by it. Whether it would be some form of mental bondage, if it would be somebody playing with their thought process, or if they just have a lot of things on their mind. I mentioned that a lot of guitar players and singers and stuff that I used to be very attracted to, they appeared to be what the social norm would consider to be a little crazy, in a healthy way, meaning I was attracted to them, but I noticed that there was a big difference with them. Okay, now, in 2012, I did not know what to do because the United States government does not promote what we should be entitled to at birth, which is we should be given an account with our name on it. And that account should have a proper amount of freedom to live in America. Meaning I shouldn't have to go to work if I don't want to. I'm born in America, I should have an account, and fuck the government, fuck everybody when it comes to I don't have to work. Okay, but the truth of the matter is, I believe that we should all want to contribute. And there's a much, 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 much bigger difference. In other words, you have your needs met, you have a safe home to start with, you have food, and you have the financial ability, because all finances are, not all, is very valuable, it's freedom. This is how much freedom you get to use, in your lifetime. We don't have very much, or we wouldn't all be going into debt, which tells me that we have poor leaders in the United States. And I'm not afraid to tell them that to their face, and you shouldn't either, Maybe not enough people read the Bible to figure out all the wrong people are in leadership positions. And maybe then we wouldn't be driving around with potholes all over the cities. Maybe we wouldn't be around with all these abandoned buildings. Maybe we wouldn't be dealing with a whole bunch of people who are homeless on the streets. Maybe we wouldn't be dealing with all the kidnappings and stuff that happens in America, only they don't talk about it. I have learned that most likely a majority of the disappearance of children or people, or child slavery, led into sex slavery, etc., smuggled out of the country, is coming from people via satellite who are watching and monitoring everybody in the United States. And if they have their eyes on something, they lure them from their home. And let me tell you something, I've learned that they will wait till you get to very, 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 very lonely places before they will actually start the attack. And that's when you realize people you used to think that you looked up to or had posters on the wall, they're fucking criminals. They're criminals, and chances are they're listening to you, invading your privacy, or they're connected to people very close to who is. I learned in 2012 when I went out to Las Vegas that I was being watched closely, and I was zapped on the bridge, meaning somebody gave me a joint, I smoked it on the bridge in public, I smoked a joint, and then I almost died. As I was in the process of dying on the bridge in Las Vegas, that same guy who had given the joint to another person perceived as being homeless at the time, but they weren't, who gave it to me, he dropped a match pack, and on the match pack, I remember looking at it, and I looked up at him as he kept on walking. He was rubbing it in my face because something happened in an argument or a discussion, and he seriously did not like what I was saying. That same time that I was dealing with that, somebody foolishly ran up to me within a few weeks ago, prior to that, or upon my arrival in Las Vegas, within a brief time before that, that there was Bret Michaels had moved to Las Vegas recently. Now, why would people be telling me that? I don't care where Bret Michaels lives. Okay? I didn't go to Las Vegas for that. This is the same person that, where's the CD at? That's the same person I gave this disc to years ago at Goodfellas in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Okay, that's what my song kind of discusses about when I sang Left in the Cold. That was through mutual people that used to go to his shows at Goodfellas and mine. They wanted me to play closer to their house. They loved going to Goodfellas in Pottsville, Pottsville. So they invited me to try to get shows. They would talk to people about me playing places. And I told them, I said, if you think that it'll be interesting for the local community, I would love to come and play. Because I learned really early on that you only want to play places that, have a lot of clientele, meaning other people there, whether it's because they're eating, they're drinking at the time, or they want to hear live music. People that are into solo acoustic, it's not the same as doing bands. With that being said, I ended up going and I met him, gave him a disc, and etc., kind of like the song describes. I also realized that prior to that, I was doing a lot of investigating. I was going back and forth to Nashville, Tennessee, and I realized several times that the name Willie Nelson has come up in my life, okay? I don't know exactly who Willie Nelson is all involved in, or what kind of people monitor somebody like Willie Nelson and his music, because it all has little bar marks on it. But I will tell you this, in brief summary, I ended up meeting a Nashville songwriter, Jim Femino. I call him Femino. I don't know if it's Fem or Feme, whatever. It's Femino or something like that. He, closer to Philadelphia, and I really, really valued and appreciated the meeting. I got to meet with him. I talked to him. That's where I got to meet Dizzy Dean. That's what he called himself, from Britney Fox. Now, here's the thing. While I was there, okay, I already knew that Jim was connected to Toby Keith. We already know that Toby Keith is connected to Willie Nelson. Now, when I go back even further, I remember going to my garage and speaking to one of my very best friends, and he had mentioned to me about Willie Nelson. I'm not going to go into the deep conversation about it, but I'm going to tell you that it was odd to me that even the subject kind of came up. It was on similar subjects that my friend used to enjoy, just simply investigating, reading books about, really. So I don't know where he got exactly his information, but also it stems back into following all the way to where I used to be in Union Alley, etc., where there was a lot of tragedy in my life, okay? In my life. Not necessarily to me, but there was within the life that I was living. And I don't want to talk about that subject because I already did. Now, where am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is when I was out in New Jersey as an escort, okay? Prior to 2012, when I almost died on the bridge and somebody ran up not only and told me that Bret Michaels moved in the area, I also had a brief encounter in my hotel room with a Bret Michaels look-alike who showed me his driver's license and declared that it's not really Bret. I've never had anybody in my whole life do that to me, okay? Now here's the other thing. In New Jersey, there were people who were trying to influence me, okay, to go to John Bon Jovi's house, okay, while I was visiting a beach. Not only that, somebody also was standing outside my door at a hotel when I walked across the street. They were fishing or pretending to fish, and I ended up meeting this one person, gave him a card, and I ended up talking to them, and I knew that that person in conversation was in connection to Bon Jovi's, at least old management, Doc McGee. Now, this is the same state and the same briefing area where a lot of satanic stuff had also happened to me. What I've learned as an escort is that I was being monitored for a very long time, probably most likely my whole entire life, okay? That's what I've realized. Now, how are these other people tied into it? Well, this is stuff that would be interesting to have coffee and tea and sit down and talk about the possibilities that are endless. Because what I realized is when I came out here in 2010, okay, after some chanting happened to me in 2009 at Xenia, scared the crap out of me. I ended up, hold on a minute, I gotta switch here quick.